With the election coming up, I think it's important that we revisit a topic that is very important. I truly recommend that everyone who calls themselves a believer stay out of this election. There is no reason to participate in this and tie yourself to this system and their agenda. I have dealt with this topic during the last election, but I think it's important to bring it back up. I truly hope that many of you that follow these videos, you already have this understanding and do not plan to participate. But for many, still not with full understanding, I want to make sure that it's made clear. This is also being made for those that maybe have never been exposed to this ministry, but someone you know has sent this to you, so you can understand what they have been saying about not voting and participating and why. I've discussed this topic in my Matrix series because it's part of the overall topic of the Matrix. The Matrix is a very powerful weapon used by our enemy. It keeps many people asleep living in a dream world that they believe is reality. It makes them believe that they have more power than they actually do. It keeps them from living through the true power that our Creator has given us, and keeps us sedated and defenseless against our enemy. As a recap, the Matrix is a world that has been made to purposely deceive you, while at the same time it influences you to contribute satanic energy to help establish a new world order. This understanding comes through the peeling of layers. The first layer of understanding the Matrix comes with following the money. If you follow the money, then the control aspects of this world become much more clear to you. From that understanding, we can see that whoever controls the money controls the nation. And we can also understand that all the debt that has been accumulated over the century around the world is held by a few families that control the economic foundation of the world. So when you understand this, you understand that the world system can never be fair. It's controlled by a small amount of wealthy families that dictate their will on the rest of the world. Because of their wealth and their power, they were able to create this massive mind game known as the Matrix through their control of money. But they could not just stop there. They needed to have a mental buy-in from the majority of the world population in order for their new world to be built. So after they seized control through money, they grabbed power in other areas of society as well. And this control is seen through many different aspects of our society, like with our education, our medicine, our technology, absolutely through religion. And through this topic we're about to deal with now, which is politically. Now let me give this disclaimer. This is a topic that you have been conditioned to really think only one way about, and so I understand if you disagree initially. Disagreement is okay, and it is healthy when it is done with respect. So all that I ask is that if you do disagree, do it with respect and allow the opportunity for healthy dialogue. Breaking out the Matrix is not an easy task. The Matrix is a prison, but it's not a physical one. It's a prison for your mind, which makes it more dangerous than a physical prison could ever be. What makes a mental prison worse is first, you don't even know that you're there. You don't know the prison exists, which makes it even harder to escape from. Another problem is once you feel that you have freed yourself, that you freed your mind, you often find that you have just freed yourself from a corridor of the prison, and you still have a ways to go to really break out. But you must break out, and that is the goal of this video. So if you allow me, let me help you. Do not take part in this political system that controls the blind. Break free and be set apart from it. We will discuss why. Let's begin. Okay, so where should we start? Well, let's first label what the mind-controlled aspect is. It's not so simple as just labeling it as voting. The mind control really starts when we look at what the full system is. It's summed up by one word: democracy. What is a democracy? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as government by the people, rule of the majority, or a government in which the supreme power is vested in the people and exercised by them directly or indirectly through a system of representation, usually involving periodically held free elections. So democracy is a government that is run by the people.
Take Gotham from the corrupt, the rich, the oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity, and we give it back to you, the people.
They say it's for the people. And this is that mind control that those that really run this world, they need the majority of the people to believe. They need them to believe that they're really in control collectively, and the way that they exercise their power is by voting. That is the mind control. Now, before we examine why that is mind control, let's go back and look at the world before this mind controlled way of thinking began. So let's go back in time to the world before this mental barrier of democracy really took hold. Now, a democracy is not new. Democracy can be traced back to ancient Greece in the 5th century BC. But I don't want to go too deep into that, more than saying that the idea is not a new one. The difference where I want to explain is where the power normally was. In the ancient world during the times of the Bible, power was held in the hands of a small few. There were kings, queens, and emperors. This was a government run by an absolute power, what we would call a monarchy. Power was able to be seen clearly as to who was in control and who yielded that control. An absolute ruler may be accepted because the people believe or accept the idea that God gave him or her the right to rule. This belief is known as divine right, which often has been associated with the monarchy, a form of government in which the power of the king or queen is hereditary. What I am explaining is that this was the most common form of government that the world had known. I won't go too deep, but there have been those that have been given a right to rule by the God of this world, little g, in order to move the world towards this new world order that they have been desiring ever since the fall of the first Babylon. They have been given power to rule. This is the power of a monarch. And in our history, this was the most popular form of government. It was a seen hand of control rather than the unseen hand that we have today. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. This was the form of government we see all throughout the times of the Bible, especially during the times of the New Testament when Yahusha walked the earth. The known world was under the rule of Caesar, the emperor. For the world as a majority, we were subject to the rule of these earthly leaders, but we were never supposed to give our hearts to them. That always belonged to Yahuwah, our creator. Like Yahusha said in Mark chapter 12, when the Pharisees tried to catch him up, he said, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to Elohim the things that are Elohim's." And they marveled at him. Mark chapter 12, verse 17. Our hearts belong to Yah. But yeah, that's what the people of the world knew. A government run by a small chosen few. But let's not linger on that. Let's go back to the Matrix. What is it again? It's a world that has been made to purposely deceive you, while at the same time it influences you to contribute satanic energy to help establish a new world order. Now, in order for this new world order to be implemented, it cannot come by force. The devil is not trying to be like the Most High by force. He abandoned that strategy because he saw people rebelled against it.
Humanity could not be trusted with its own freedom. What we did not realize was that if you try to take that freedom, they resist. The war taught us much. Humanity needed to surrender its freedom willingly.
So no, his strategy is not trying to be like the Most High by force, but by strategically turning the world's hearts over to him and his ways. And if your eyes are open, you can see this happening clearly. The world embraces Satanism openly, and they're proud of it. A big part of implementing this had to come with empowering people, giving them the illusion of power so that they feel that they have control. You see, if the world felt like they were being pushed into this new world order, they would rebel against it, and this prophecy would not be fulfilled. In his power grab on the people, he created a system in which the people felt they had a say, that their voice matters, and that through exercising their voice, they're able to create the world that they want. When you think about the manipulation, the scheme is actually very well played. You don't force people with a hard hand or violence to submit to your will, but you give them a voice, some stake in the game, and make them feel that they're part of the system. Then they will actively care for it. And that is the agenda or scheme that has been carried out in this matrix. It's giving the people a feeling of control and then leading them into making the decisions that you want them to make. What is ironic and manipulative is that while the devil is using his soft approach in bringing the masses into this new world, he used a heavy, hard hand when he hijacked the church and started spreading Christianity around the world through the Holy Roman Empire. He used Yahuwah's word in a get down, lay down approach, making people submit to the Bible through fear and coercion that had very negative effects over world history. So in this peeling back of the onion of the Matrix, we see that in order to create this new world, Satan and his minions have given the illusion of rule and power to the people, in which the people feel that they are building this new world themselves, and were not coerced by an ultimate power. So we're taught that in order to change the world that we live in, we are to do it by exercising our voices. And we are taught that our voice is our vote that we cast. And that is the mind control that was embedded in the American society, and the oldest generation, The Great Depression babies and their children, who we know as the baby boomer generation, have been overly programmed to believe in this system. And then when you look outside of America, you'll find that they later spread this mind control all over the world, giving people the illusion of power and choice by establishing democracies all over the world. Now, before I get into the easily identifiable reasons why you can see that we should not believe in this lie of democracy, because we are in fact an oligarchy, which is ruled by a few elites whose right to rule is based on possession of wealth, social status, military position, or achievement. This is the unseen hand, but I won't get into that yet. Let me just cover why this democracy is not ordained by Yahuwah our Father. Now, don't get me wrong, this system that they created comes with benefits that we are able to use. Like without this system, videos like this wouldn't be able to exist. Try to make content in China that speaks against the Chinese government and see where that lands you. There's a freedom to do certain things that doesn't exist in other forms of government that has taken the power out of the hands of the people. But with this comes a double-edged sword, because the same laws that are used to promote our rights are the same laws that are used to change what is accepted in this world and bring about more liberal agendas that were never accepted. You see, the purpose of democracy is not simply putting the power in people's hands and giving them freedom. It's actually about taking the power out of Yah's hand, our Creator, and giving the people the freedom to create the world that they want. Understand, we are created to live under the dominion of our Creator. This is His world. This is something that we have lost sight of. We have all these purposes and agendas creating a world that has nothing to do with Him to bring about His righteousness. The minute people started feeling that they had power in this world to bring about the change that they needed, we instantly started to move away from our Creator. It's deception, and precisely how we see in Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, that Satan deceives the whole world. In order to create his new world where Satan is worshipped as the Most High, he had to deceive the world in taking away the power from Yahuwah and putting the collective will of people over the will of Yahuwah, the Most High. We can see that this is not what our Father ever intends for His people. He does not want us moving to our own will, but living for His, building His kingdom. If you just go back in the Old Testament in 1 Samuel chapter 8, Yahuwah intended to be the only king that reigned over Israel. But they rejected Him and wanted to be like the other nations and have a king who reigned over them and judged them. As Yahuwah said to Samuel, "Heed the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them, according to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, with which they have forsaken me and served other gods. So they are doing to you also. Now therefore, heed their voice. However, you shall solemnly forewarn them and show them the behavior of the king who will reign over them." It's 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 7 through 9. And it did go downhill for Israel after that point, and Yah warned them of it. Get this right. He never intended for us to create the perfect world with justice and equality. You will not find that anywhere in the Bible where He gave us the charge to create a world based on our own will and our own desires. We are to be led by His Spirit and to do His will. But we are still subject to the laws of the land. But in no way are we to try to help shape these laws. This is a true biblical perspective. And listen, it's possible that you haven't heard this perspective in your churches ever, because guess what? Your churches, most of them are sold out to Satan. They're sold out to the system in their 501c3 organizations, and therefore they have to say what they're allowed to say. It doesn't make sense for there to be all these self-proclaimed Christians in the world that feel that they're helping create a better world through the power of their vote. It makes absolutely no sense. For those that believe in it, how's that worked out for you so far? I always ask baby boomers the same question. Since they have been voting all their adult life, how has your vote changed your life for the better? Now, I get the deception because in the past, the world was quite different, and evil wasn't so easily discerned as it is today in these last days. So the older generations truly believed that they were voting for what they believed were Christian principles, and it was their job to vote against evil. But here's the thing that they didn't understand. You are not going to stop evil by conforming to Satan's world. You only will stop it or slow it down when rejecting his world and his ways. If the Christian church had have collectively separated themselves from the world and not participate and lived solely through the word, then evil would not have been so easy to prevail in the way that it has over the decades. What people have been doing is they're fighting fire with fire. They were trying to fight Satan using Satan's tactics and schemes. And they were unknowingly racing us toward the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And the worst part is that they're on the wrong side of it. And that's the true reality. This is why Bible prophecy is something that's not taught strong in the churches. Because if the book of Revelation was taught and the understanding was lived through, there would be an understanding that no matter what people voted for, this world will be racing towards evil. And the church would know that its only role will be to be the light of the world, showing how to not be a part of the judgment that's coming. But instead, the Christian church joined the politics of this world and attached itself to the direction of this world. And it's actually assisting with steering the world towards a new world order. And that is true whether you're a Republican or Democrat, liberal or conservative or labor, etc. What does the word actually say? It says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Elohim." That's Romans chapter 12, verse 2. If we were applying these scriptures, we would not be conforming to this world and its patterns. But by participating in its democracy, we are only helping steer the world towards the new world order, where Satan tries to be like the Most High. So here's where the challenge comes in. The problem most people have with this thought is, so what are we supposed to do? Let people walk over us and bring us down? People have a problem with this understanding that I'm giving because they have a belief that they have control. This is something that you need to deal with now before it's too late. I'm talking to believers. Those that do not believe the word of Yah, those that do not believe in redemption only through Yahusha the Messiah, these people will not understand the concept of submission to the will of the Most High. But if you're a believer, this should not be a new thought. It should be a way of life that you're trying to get better at day by day. Those that believe that they have to do something, and that's why they vote, need to really evaluate their relationship with the Most High. He did not place the power to vote in your hands to bring about His kingdom. He gave you the gift of the Holy Spirit that allows you to walk with Him and be comforted by His Spirit no matter what comes your way, so that your life is always dedicated to Him and His purpose. Not to the world that you would like to see, not to getting rid of the injustices you're tired of seeing and being affected by. This world that we're in right now is not your world to shape politically. And you being a part of the system, voting in it, only helps Satan. When you're attaching yourself to this political system, you're attaching your heart to the system and hoping for man to bring about change. Like when people voted in Obama, I remember people crying literally on their knees while he told the world,
"Change has come to America."
But it was not the change that everyone expected. Donald Trump also came with the same message of change and draining the swamp, and the world is more divided and polarized than ever before. Biden was worse, promising more change, and he brought mandates that people still do not know the full extent to what they did yet. And now we have Kamala and Trump. And with Kamala, the people didn't even choose her. The people didn't even get to choose who represents this promise of change for them. And as she promises change, it's the craziest thing because they are literally in control right now. They're campaigning on change when they're the ones in power. It's literally the craziest thing I've ever seen. But people are falling for it nonetheless. What people like to do that ignore these messages, they want to place blame on the other party. They'll say, well, the Republicans, they blocked everything Obama did, and the Democrats opposed everything Trump tried to do. Or they just speak in defense because they were mind controlled to hate Trump, and so that hate of him supersedes any other rational thought. They don't even see the game that's played on them. The system made Trump so much of the enemy that people will choose anything in order to not have Trump. It's crazy. Shifting blame is the normal thought process. But the fact is that no matter what side you're voting for or choosing, these people are leading the world exactly where the Bible has prophesied. And no matter what you did, whether you casted your vote or not, we would still be in the same predicament. But because the Christian church has attached itself to the world, they are continuously taken advantage of and they're played. Let me keep it very real with you. The Democratic Party, which is the liberal party, would not exist today without the Negro Church. It's obviously not everyone, but there is a strong majority of Democrats that come from the Negro Church, and that's because they use racial issues and economic inequality against us. So the Negro Church is used to promote the agendas and legitimacy of the Democratic Party, completely being played, being whored. A Christian Democrat is literally the biggest oxymoron we can see, because the Democratic Party pushes a liberal agenda that is completely unbiblical and against the beliefs that the Negro Church says that they believe in. They go to church and praise God for one thing, and they go to the ballot box to vote for the complete opposite thing. It's because they have placed their racial justice and economic equality agendas above serving the Most High. They are being used to help bring about Satan's agenda while professing to be serving our Father. Imagine going to church every week, but then voting for people who support the most demonic satanic principles. But this is reality. The community of people we call Black people in this country, there is a reason why the overwhelming majority of you are Democrats. This is not by accident. It was coerced. If you are a baby boomer, you need to know that from the time you were a child, you were manipulated and controlled and coerced into accepting false principles that directly oppose the faith that you claim. Let me give you a brief story of the history. In September of 1960, the Nixon-Kennedy debate was the first televised presidential debate. This was the time where the American public were all influenced for the first time at the same time all together. The country was widely introduced to John F. Kennedy for the first time. They weren't just hearing his speeches on the radio anymore or seeing him if he came to their town. He was in everyone's home all at once. The television became an important medium to meet our leaders. So it was much more than just listening. By seeing them, they could attach to them, and they did so with JFK. Now, if you're going to break free from this mind control, you must review how they use MLK as their tool against us. Michael King is the reason why the Negro community in America are Democrats. I call him Michael because this is his original name. You cannot ignore what was happening with Michael when examining politics. Along with being introduced to JFK, Michael King was a very popular Negro. He was the most influential Negro at the time, and he was getting a lot of media attention through the Civil Rights Movement. Now, there was already a beginning split between Negroes who voted Democrat versus Republican. But today, we know the Democratic Party gets at least 90% of the Negro vote. This period in the 60s is when it started to happen. They began with their political theater. Just a few weeks before the presidential election, Michael King gets arrested with others during a sit-in in Atlanta. But while everyone else is released, Michael King is kept in jail. On October 26, JFK calls Michael's wife Coretta to express his concern, and then 24 hours after, his brother Robert called the judge and asked that he get King out of jail. Then Michael's Prince Hall Freemason daddy, Michael Sr., the one who changed both their names, he was a longtime influential voting Republican. He already endorsed Republican candidate Nixon, but came out publicly and said, "I was against having a Catholic for president, but if he can wipe the tears from my daughter-in-law's eyes, I have the courage to vote for Kennedy for president." And this Negro Republican endorses the Democratic nominee and says he has a suitcase full of votes. And then when Michael gets out of prison, October 27th, he is interviewed on television by reporters.
"I've been confined and I haven't talked with anybody from Washington or from the campaign."
Do you know of any efforts made on behalf of the Kennedy group?
Well, I understand that the Kennedy group did make definite contacts and did a great deal to make my release possible.
And they say this course of events. This phone call made by Kennedy was said to be the turning point in one of the closest elections in modern-day history at that time. Kennedy beat Nixon because he got more of the Negro vote through political, highly orchestrated theater. This all happened on television, and so 90% of the homes saw this and believed in the authenticity of it. And there was no reason to doubt any of this. The public knew very little of Freemasonry and the Boule membership of Michael. They didn't even know that there was a Boule. They just saw their black leader wrongly imprisoned, and it was this Democrat who cared enough to get him out. The power of the television brought the last Negroes over to the Democratic Party, and they were all attached to Kennedy. And then as they continued in the 60s, this whole generation of people, black and white, baby boomers and their parents, they were controlled and traumatized. Look at what happened during this time. The March on Washington happened in 1963. Kennedy was assassinated. Johnson was made president, and 9 months later, they passed the Civil Rights Act. And the baby boomers, they felt personally responsible for the change that occurred when they saw the Civil Rights Act of 1964 pass. They felt that it was them that evoked this change. They were and still are completely unaware of the shadow workings that pushed this agenda to happen. You see, the actual reality was that the agenda for us had changed. They just were not aware of it. There was no longer any need to exclude the Negro. In order for their new world to be built, now there was a need to control them. They needed to be included in society and attach them to Babylon's agenda, which we can see clear evidence of today that it worked.
They will not be able to turn back the clock. They want to stop blacks from voting. We're going to vote anyhow. No matter how hard you make it, we coming anyhow. They're going to try to put women back in the kitchen with an apron. We're not going back in the kitchen. We're not putting the apron back on. They're trying to tell gays get back in the closet. We're not going back in the closet. We're going to lock the closet. We're going to stand up for who we are and where we are and what we are. Our fathers fought for this, and we're going to maintain it. 60 years ago, Martin Luther King talked about a dream. 60 years later, we're the dreamers.
A people who once were heavily in the church and had conservative values chose politics over their faith, and that started here. If you wonder why so many of your Negro parents and grandparents vote for these liberal agendas, gay rights, abortion, feminism, it's all because of this event in 1964 that they were attached to. They were mind controlled. This agenda was selling their soul to their masters. These people, they descended from people who were brought here involuntarily and forced to serve, and now they were demanding to be a part of this system, a system they knew nothing about. They just wanted to be equal because they were told that they were nothing. They were taught that it was about their skin color, which was why they were hated, and they just wanted to be accepted despite their skin color, which was complete garbage. They were manipulated by sellouts in their own community. I'm talking about the Boule and Freemasons and lower level Greeks. All these people who were attached to the enemy and were used by the enemy to make these people attach themselves to a system and a people against the Most High. They were led by Michael to look for the promised land, and that land was not a promise from Yahuwah, but it was a promise to be a part of this country, and so this is their religion. And they don't know anything else because the black church was built around this. Equal rights and economic prosperity is a religion of the black church, and they are completely lost. They were mind controlled to put their civil rights and equality and tie it to their faith. What was being preached in the churches was a social gospel, and so they have no idea on who the God of the Bible is, except that they're to believe in him. And that hypocrisy led the next wave of why their children and the next couple of generations after them began to disavow themselves from the Bible because of the clear hypocrisy from their parents. And now there's just confusion. People voting because they're tied to a lie, and they have accepted values that their faith is completely against. But they vote because they feel that they actually have a voice and they have to use it. But listen, this isn't just about the Democratic side. Republicans are just as bad. It's just a different agenda. The Republican side, because they're aligning with Trump and all that goes along with him, they have made conservative values be something that needs to go away. Values that are actually more biblically aligned are made to seem radical because it's tied to Trump. I am not saying that Republicans are biblical people, because listen, that's not the case. That's not what I just said here. The white Christian Republicans, evangelicals as the system calls them, are just the same amount of hypocrites as the black liberal Democrats. Remember, it's these same evangelicals that was the reason why we needed a civil rights agenda in the first place, because their Christian values were attached to bigotry and hate. So please don't misunderstand me. There are certain values in the Republican Party that are more biblically aligned than the other side, and the agenda is about making those values radical or even racist because of the hate of Trump and the traumatization of racism and oppression. This is a big mind game that the rulers of this world are using against the masses. By making certain biblical values political, because Trump represents the Republican Party, when he goes down, so will the last stand of biblical values go as well. Trump doesn't really care about your conservative values. He's not really on your side. He actually chose the hardest assignment in their Masonic club, and that's to be the scapegoat. The world needed an enemy, and Trump took the assignment in order to help bring about the satanic agenda that's coming regardless of who gets in office. This is all possible because people are tying themselves into a political system that is not actually made for their benefit. Listen, there is so much I can say to this point, but in reality, you do not need to go into the mechanics of the political system to understand why we should not be a part of it. The mind control of this matrix is all about creating a world where Satan's ways and values are followed by the world. And this lie of democracy is a strong tool that is used to bring this goal about. Again, the purpose of democracy is not simply putting the power in people's hands and giving them freedom. It's actually about taking the power out of Yah's hand, our creator, and giving the people the freedom to create the world that they want. Now, if you really want to go deep, very briefly we can, because when you really understand the system, if you want to look at the reality away from the matrix, your vote, it doesn't really count. I mean, that's easily seen by the election between Hillary and Donald, where Hillary won the popular vote, but Trump won the election. The Electoral College actually decides who wins, and they can go away from the vote of the people. When Americans cast their votes for president, they are in reality directing other people, called electors, to vote for the candidate who receives the most votes in their state. The political party of the winning candidate in each state then sends its pre-selected electors to the state capitol to vote. But these electors can vote contrary to what the state's popular vote was. There were 7 electors who voted contrary to the state's popular vote for president in 2016, the most who've done so since 1972, and that's how Trump got elected. So no matter what, your vote does not matter. Someone else is in charge of doing something with the vote that you cast. But let's say that your vote did matter. You are only given candidates that the system has chosen as acceptable and are controllable. The unseen hand controls nations through money, so it doesn't matter who sits in office, because whoever controls the monetary system actually controls the country. These candidates share a secret bond that we do not know much about. It's like the Bush-Kerry election in 2004. Both candidates are a part of the same secret skull and bone society, which the majority knew nothing of.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing...
Though they were on opposing sides, they still had a secret collective bond the public knew nothing about.
Secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but...
How about the fact that many presidents are Freemasons? We publicly know that 1/3 of the United States presidents were Freemasons, and according to Albert Pike's Moral and Dogma, this organization is charged with spreading the light of Lucifer. Or how about the fact that many of the presidents, they're related? What's the odds that the first black president of the United States was related to the president he was replacing? It should be extremely low, but if you actually understand this country, you would know that the odds were actually pretty high. Obama was related to Bush. But ignoring all that, let's actually say that the candidates put in place, they were not actually selected. Though they are, let's just for argument's sake say they were not selected. This is the reason why I do not vote in any elections, not just the national, but the state and local governance as well. What elected officials really do is they decide where the flow of money goes. The power is not just given over to people that will completely cross and work against the overall agenda of the world. And if it is, those people get squashed. The fact is that lobbying, no matter what, creates an unfair advantage. So no matter what is happening in the public, whatever they desire actually gets pushed because of the money that is behind the scenes. What is lobbying? That is when you seek to influence a politician or a public official on an issue. And this is a common practice in our political system. And if you truly learn about this system and follow the money, you can see that no matter what, there are agendas that are being manipulated behind the scenes. No matter what you vote for, there is money that is being spent in the background behind the scenes that is not spoken of, that really holds more control than your vote. You think your vote has more power than their money? Here's another thing I want you to understand. What I often hear people say is that they are voting for the lesser evil. That thought right there is the most dangerous thought you could ever have. First off, who is determining who and what is the lesser evil? And what biblical belief tells you that this is what our Father in heaven desires you to do? If you know that you have to choose between two different evils, don't pick any one of them at all. What you do not realize is that no matter what, you are choosing evil. Do you think that you will say to our Father, yeah, I picked evil, but it was for something less evil? He doesn't want you choosing evil at all. When you say you are voting for the lesser evil, it still says you're voting for evil. Do you think voting for evil is what you should be doing? The purpose of getting everyone involved in the political system is not actually about giving power to the people. It's about steering the hearts and minds of the population and making them feel that they have a stake in the world that's being created. When you vote, all you're doing is checking off a box that their mind control is working on you. In the end, it does not matter who you vote for because their agenda will go through no matter what. You cannot slow it down by engaging in their system. You slow it down by relying on the power of our Creator that works through you through His Holy Spirit. The more attached to the system you are, the more angrier you will be when they turn things up, very similar to how they did in the last election. At this point in time, the politics of this world are being used to drive us towards a new world order. As a believer, if you truly are one in your heart and not one by title, you need to choose the ways of our Father. If you believe the Bible, then live by it. Don't be a believer that says they believe, but their actions don't match this belief at all. He has clearly told us in His Word where this world is heading. Your vote will not change this. Again, you cannot vote away Bible prophecy. You must keep your hearts and minds pure. You can only do this when you do not participate, because no matter what, the minute you engage, they are grabbing you in. If you have been voting for a majority of your life, examine the world since you started voting until now. Has the world gotten better or worse? What do you have to lose by not voting? The politics of today is not just promoting political agendas, but is clearly seeing that a civil war is brewing because of our polarizing politics. Both Kamala and Trump agree on one thing. If the election is not won for their party, there will be an apocalypse, which means no matter what, we're going to have a problem. There's nothing you can do about this except stay clear away from this and protect your mind, protect your heart and your soul from being manipulated by this matrix. In trying to create a better world, you are working against our Creator and are strengthening the New World Order, which has no place for our Creator. And that's why we see more and more policies moving to be on the opposite side of Him. You must be smart and vigilant today. The devil is out on a full court press, and everything that you think makes sense is pretty much wrong and places you in opposition to the God you are saying you serve. Put down your ballots and pick up your Bibles. Stop listening to the rhetoric trying to figure out which side you're on. Forget about all of these political agendas, both sides. There is only one agenda, and that is moving the world towards the dominion of Satan. And your only option as a believer is to not be a part of it. Stay out of this political theater and turn your heart back to our Father. In the end, I know that this message will be hard to receive, especially since people have been conditioned all their life to believe in the power of their vote. And there will be a lot of programming that will promote to you that you have a say and that your vote means something. So it's really up to you to make your decision on what you believe and who you will serve. Take it up in prayer and submit to Yahweh's voice. Whatever you do, please make sure you know what you're doing. In these last days, for me personally, it's important to me to keep my sanity and my mind and my heart purely for our Father. And that's what I will continue to do. I hope that you will do it along with me. Just know, if it seems evil to you to serve Yahuwah, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve Yahuwah. That's Joshua chapter 24, verse 15. I hope you choose the same as well. Stay out of this election and stay out of what happens after. Be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Okay, thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please make sure to like it and share this video with others. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. Yah willing, I upload every Friday. Also, don't forget to follow this ministry on Facebook and Instagram, as well as on my website, truthunedited.com. I really would like to give a special thank you and shout out to those who have donated and continue to support this ministry. I'm so thankful for the love of our Father, and I thank you for your obedience to His call on your heart. I'm always humbled by your support, and I'm very thankful for you. You know who you are. Be blessed. Okay, thanks again everyone for watching. Make our Creator, the Most High, the priority right now. Be ready and be blessed. I love you all.